Our final method of estimating bad debt is the aging of receivables method. The aging of receivables method is arguably the most accurate way to estimate our bad debt. If you remember, the percentage of sales method estimated bad debt based on a percentage of our sales for the month, whether or not the balance had actually been collected. The aging of, or the percentage of receivables method was slightly more accurate because our bad debt expense was related to the amount of receivables that were still uncollected at the end of the month. The aging of receivables method goes one step further to look at how old are the receivables. So we have our aging, where we have our current balance, which is not yet due. If you think about it, there's a good chance that most of that is going to be collected. There's really no reason to think any of it's bad. It's not even due yet. Our next bucket is 0 to 90 days past due. So these people are a little late. A little more likely that some of them aren't going to pay, but we're still not really in the danger zone. Then we go to 91 to 180 days past due. That's 3 to 6 months. Now we're starting to get worried. More of these are likely to be uncollectible. We have 180 to 360. That's receivables that are 6 to 12 months past due. I don't know. These people are really looking a bit dodgy. It's quite possible that quite a few of these will end up not being collected. Finally, we have the balance that's more than a year past due. I mean, this really, probably none of that's going to get collected. It's still on our receivables balance. We can still send people after them, collection agencies, our own internal collectors, but those are really looking doubtful. Using the aging of receivables method, we reserve for each of these balances at a different rate. So for the current, which isn't even due, we're only going to reserve 2% of that. We think, historically speaking, yeah, a couple of them may not pay, but we're looking pretty good. The percentages get higher as the receivables get older, until finally, for balances that are more than a year past due, we're going to reserve 100% of them. So the reason this is a little more accurate is because it takes into account how old are our receivables, and it weights them so that we are reserving a bigger percentage of older receivables and a smaller percentage of newer receivables. So to calculate what our reserve should be, we multiply the reserve rate for that aging bucket, we call these aging buckets, by the amount that's in the bucket. So we would take our 2% rate times our current bucket of $16,500. And we would want to reserve, we would want our reserve to equal $330 for that bucket. We're going to go ahead and do that for each of our aging buckets. In fact, I think I can probably just copy my formula and paste it over. Okay, so this is the amount we're going to reserve for each bucket. Now, we're not going to keep a separate allowance for doubtful accounts for each bucket because the administrative hassle of that is really, it's getting us more precise than we need to be. So I'm going to add up all of my reserve amounts. Let me try that again. My total reserve at the end of October should be $12,485. That's adding up the reserves from each of my aging buckets. So I want to have $12,485 in my reserve. The aging of receivables method is similar to the percentage of receivables method in that the amount we calculate is not necessarily our journal entry. We have to compare it to what's already in our allowance for doubtful accounts account. So in this case, we want our account at the end of October to be $12,485. So in order to get it there, our journal entry is going to be what we want it to be minus what's already in there. So the amount that we are going to charge off to bad debt this month is $985. That's going to be our JE for 10/31/2020. And we will, when we credit that same amount to allowance for doubtful accounts, then our ending balance at the end of October will be $12,485, which is the amount we calculated it needed to be. So I'm going to debit bad debt expense for $10,985. And I'm going to credit allowance for doubtful accounts for $10,985. This will bring the balance of my allowance for doubtful accounts account to where it needs to be. As a reminder, allowance for doubtful accounts is a contra asset account. It's an asset account that carries a natural credit balance. This concludes our videos on estimating bad debts and really everything about accounting for bad debts. All right, we'll see you in class.